Hello, good afternoon, everyone. We're coming up this week, as we all know, to a very special weekend, as we can call it, a special Shabbos. This is the Shabbos of the 19th and 20th of Kislev. This is the time of the liberation of the Baal HaTanya, the first Rebbe of Chabad, 215 years ago. And as we know that this is today's Friday and Shabbos coming up, this is the days of celebration in the entire Chabad movement in the world, the entire Hasidic movement of the world, and the entire Jewish community of the world. And this is days that's calling for many celebrations, as in every community they will do so. And this upcoming Thursday night, Friday night, and Shabbos day to celebrate this moment of the liberation of the Baal HaTanya, that he was in prison for 53 days, as the story is very known. We're not going to go into that story. We're just going to be talking about the celebration of the story. Celebration of this event of 19th and 20th of Kislev. As we know that all events that happens through the year is connected and related to the Parsha of this week, and especially this year that happens to be on Friday and Shabbat itself. So for sure, that celebration that we are celebrating, the liberation of the Baal HaTanya, is related to the Parsha of this week, the story with Yosef being sold to the Egyptians, as we know that this is the main big story in this week's Parsha. So even though simply it looks like that this is not exactly so much relating to the story of a liberation of the tzaddik, liberation of the Baal HaTanya, in the story of this Parsha we're really learning about a sad part of the story, the idea of him being sold to the Egyptians, that he was there for 22 years, as we continue the story later. But as we know, it's all related. So it's got to be that the liberation and the story of this Parsha with the sale of Yosef are very much related. And in short, the idea is, as we see the story by Yosef, and we're learning this week's Parsha, that when he was down in Egypt, he was sold to a fellow called Potiphar. He was so-called his boss, his master. And as we learn in this week's Parsha, that he was so impressed with Yosef, that he saw, when he said, that's written in the words of this week's Parsha, he said that Yosef, God is with him the whole time. And as we see by Yosef being there in his master's home, that his master got affected by him to see the greatness of God, that God is with Yosef. And he saw and he said that the entire house of Potiphar was affected in a good way because God is with Yosef. As he called him, Ish Matzliach, a man of success, because God is with him. And as we continue also in this week's Parsha, we see the second part of the story with Yosef, that he was sent to jail. He was there for 12 years. And in jail we see the same thing, that the fellow in charge of jail, as we call him the Torah, Sar Bet Asor, the man in charge of prison, he says the same thing to Yosef. What does it say and what does it see? That God is with Yosef, and this is why he lets him run the entire prison based the way Yosef wants. So we see two stories, there's many more, but we don't have time. Two stories in this Parsha of Yosef, that it looks like a sad story, being sold as a slave. But we see a major impact, a major positive story of Yosef affecting everywhere he is, in the worst of the worst, in the place of Egypt, in the place that he's a prisoner, in the place that he's a slave. He's affecting the entire place, that they see the presence of God, they see the holiness of God, and they themselves are all being affected by that. And this is the connection, the relationship to the Baal HaTanya of the liberation. The entire liberation of the Baal HaTanya is and was that while he was imprisoned, as he himself writes in a letter, but while he was imprisoned, The entire place was completely affected by the Kedusha of the Baal Tanya being there. As we all know the famous story that he walked in to court in front of many judges as a prisoner, as a man that they called him that he is creating a revolution against a powerful government like the Russian government at that time. Very scary story. But as we know the story, he walked in. When he walked in, he was wearing his tefillin on him. And when he walked in wearing his tefillin on him, they all started trembling from him. As we all know that story. By the way, it comes with a continuation that they asked him after, how come they were all trembling when they saw him? And he said they were not trembling from him, they were trembling because of the tefillin he was wearing. So they asked him, but everybody wears tefillin. How come people don't tremble when they see them? And he said, at the line that he gave, that it's got to be tefillin sheberosh. When they see the tefillin in the head, the statement is not tefillin on the head, tefillin in the head. It says when the Gentiles see the tefillin of a Jew in the head, not only on the head, that's when they start trembling. But it's a side point. Let's just continue what we wanted to say. So it says the story, they were all trembling by seeing him. Why were they trembling? They saw the kedusha of the tefillin that he was wearing. They saw his kedusha. And this is how we saw his effect of people that they were there to scare him. They were there to judge him. They were there to bring negative on him. But they all got affected by him. And as the story goes, even the Tsar himself, by speaking to him, he got affected by him. And this is, as we know the story, he was let out of prison. And this is how we see the connection of the two stories together. Yosef HaTzadik and the Baal Tanya. By them being where they were, being in prison, being in jail, being as a slave, the whole being was to affect the world. The entire place where they were there, they got affected by them. And this is, as we know the story, that the whole idea of the Baal Tanya being in jail and prison was to bring out that even the lowest of the lowest, even the jail, even his judges, even people in negative, they'll all get affected by the positive, and they let him out of jail. And as it's explained in the Chassidus, the Rebbe spoke about it many times, the whole idea that he said that he went out when he said that pasuk, that verse, Pada b'shalom, being redeemed in peace. And the whole explanation, it goes in layers of layers, that the way he went out of prison was not through war, was through peace. Because by him being in jail, he had such a major effect on them, such a major effect on his judges, as we said before, and everybody around, that they loved it to release him from prison. And that's the idea of Pada b'shalom, as Chassidus explains. And this is the same thing as we know the story with Yosef in this Parsha. That in order to conquer your enemy is not through war, through your major impact that you have on them. This is how you take them over, and then they become your friends, and then they will make sure that you're going to grow. This Shabbos, as we said before, is got to be a major Shabbos for all of us, a Shabbos of celebration, that the darkness was taken over by the light, but was taken over in a way that the darkness itself started lighting. And with this beautiful message, let us all come to this Shabbos, celebrate it, bring about it, and bring it out to all our friends, to the entire Jewish world, the beautiful day of the 19th and 20th of Kislev, the great miracle that God did for the entire world. Good Shabbos, and good Yom Tov, and big Mazel Tov for that celebration.